This afternoon, Sprint Ride Option podcast, 2 episodes today as the Niners play a very important Week 6 Thursday night game in Seattle. You know how much we love very important Week 6 games. Jason Aponte, Andrew Pasquini to break it down on a new Sprint Ride Option podcast starting now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go, Niners.
Let's go, Niners. Sprint Ride Option podcast. Oh my goodness, we are live. It is a new episode of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. I'm Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. And Jason, dare I say it, Nick Bosa said it, and we've been kind of teasing it the past couple of weeks, but since Bosa said it, it's official. Tonight is a must-win for the San Francisco 49ers.
No questions asked. And that's not hyperbole. That's not anybody, being overly dramatic.
No.
Yeah, you cannot go 0-3. And the reason that the 49ers are 14th in the NFC is because they have no NFC wins. Absolute must win tonight on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and it's Niners are teetering on some history here. They haven't lost 4 games in a row in the NFC West since 2018, and that wasn't a very good 49ers team. They obviously lost the Week 18 game to the Rams last year, losing Week 2 to the Rams this year, and then losing to the Cardinals last week. But if the Niners lose tonight, Jason, I looked into it. Do you know the last time the 49ers had a 5-game NFC West losing streak? Tonight would be 4, so that would put the next game at risk for the 5. The last time the 49ers lost 5 games in the NFC West, the Saints, Falcons, and Panthers were part of the NFC West. So this is something you don't see too often from a 49ers team, especially recent, a team that just came off an 11-game NFC West winning streak. And now we're all of a sudden, Jason, we're talking about a team that can't win in the division. And it's not just can't win in a division. I know we could kind of throw away the Week 18 loss because that was Darnold versus Carson Wentz. But the concern with this year is the Niners can take leads against NFC West teams, just can't finish them. And they're playing a team in Seattle I know it's Mike McDonald as the head coach, not Pete Carroll, but they tend to have some chaotic games, and they've had a couple chaotic games this season. I guess my point is I'm getting to, Jason, we've been doing this podcast for 5 years now. I think this is the game I've looked forward to the least. And I don't know if it's because of the Niners game on Sunday. I don't know if it's it's because it's a Thursday night game. I think it's just a combination of everything. This game just doesn't feel like it has the regular juice for a Niners-Seahawks rivalry game. Why do you think that is, Jason?
I don't know, because I was going to say I'm juiced, and I think that this is a big game for both teams. I think Seattle's out to prove that they're nowhere near as bad as they are on defense, which, spoiler alert, they are, and I'll let you know whose week it is this week. But I think it does, absolutely. I think when we talk about the uniforms, the electricity on Thursday Night Football, like I think this game has plenty of juice, and I'm actually happy the 49ers have a game on Thursday, so we don't have to toil around all week waiting around, and now if there was ever a team that could use this whole like wounded animal energy, or the team that, when their back's against the wall and as soon as everybody's ready to count them out, it's the 49ers. So I like all of these storylines going into it, because I think this team hears all of it, they know it, and they're going to come out and they're going to do something that, I'll keep it brief because I want to keep it for the predictions, but I've never been more juiced about this because I think the 49ers are about to break through, especially in red zone offense.
I like that. Yeah. And maybe I'm on the flip side of it, Jason, because you mentioned the red zone offense and really the offense as a whole. Arizona's pass defense isn't very good. Not that Seattle's is much better. Seattle does do much better in the red zone. I think they have like the 9th best percentage of red zone scores. But outside of that, it's a passing defense that's been fine through 4 or 5 games so far. They haven't faced much talent in terms of offense. You look at this murderer's row of quarterbacks they've had to face. Jason Aponte, it's Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett. I believe they got Tua they got the Dolphins after the Tua concussion. So that's Skylar Thompson. And then 2 weeks ago was Jared Goff. Last week it was Daniel Jones. So this is probably the best offense Seattle's going to face this season, unless you want to argue Detroit, which I'll give you that argument right now. The Niners offense hasn't been very good. So I don't know. I have a hard time, and maybe it's because I am triggered by. Maybe it helps that the Seahawks are wearing different uniforms because in my brain, it's wow, this passing offense is struggling, and they got to go up to Seattle, and obviously the Legion of Boom is still there 10 years later, right? It's my brain of like it's the Seahawks uniforms, it's in Seattle, it's obviously a good defense when it's really not. It's this weird combination of things that I'm very nervous for tonight's game, but I'm almost so nervous. I've almost convinced myself that it's going to be a Niners blowout because I'm that nervous. Because usually that's how it is, Jason. When I come into these podcasts, like, hey, I'm very nervous about this game. You tell me it's fine. We'll be fine. And then the Niners blow the game out. So I don't know. I'm very nervous. I'm happy you're relaxed because that in a way relaxes me.
Yeah, and a little bit more to Andrew's point. Seattle on the season, 183 yards per game allowed through the air. Okay, that seems good, but then you consider who they faced, and they had three quarterbacks who can't even throw the football. Now, what's interesting? Last three, 219.3 yards per game, including 245 last week, as they got torched by Daniel Jones without Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary. Obviously, this defense is banged up. I think that's the thing that we need to look at the most. No Reek Woolen. That's obviously one of their top corners. A bunch of the defensive linemen are out. They might even have more out if Boye Mafe can't play. So when we look at it, it has to be contextualized with, yes, the offenses they played early on were bad, but they were largely healthy. Now they're not largely healthy. And I think that also goes into the fact of, Daniel Jones isn't exactly a premier passer, but when you're that banged up and you can hit throws down the field like he could, because he hit a few shots to Darius Slayton in this game, the 49ers offense is obviously better than them. And I think, again, the 49ers have had no issues moving the football between the 20s. It's in the red area. And everything that I'm talking about, what's got me feeling good about this game is I feel like all the little things that have been contributing to the red zone failures, a la tip pass, a little bit bad execution, play calling, all of that breaks through this week. All of it ends up busting, and they're all going to get at least, if they get 5 red zone trips, I'm predicting 4 touchdowns in this game. And that's the kind of way I'm thinking about it. And I think the 49ers finally start to resemble the red zone offense they had last year. And I think this is the perfect week to do it when everyone's doubting them. They're this close. Everything is little stuff, whether it's a tip pass at the line, a ball that's just out of someone's reach, someone gets stopped at the 1, you call something back on penalty. All of that stuff breaks tonight. All of that stuff breaks, and the 49ers offense gets back to how they used to look in the red zone. I promise you guys.
And even before we get to the red zone, Jason, you talk about those low passing yard totals for the Seahawks. Something that I noticed last night looking into it, the Seahawks don't exactly force turnovers. They've only forced 4 turnovers this season. They had 3 in week 1 against the Broncos, forcing Bo Nix to throw 2 interceptions. They didn't force an interception out of Daniel Jones last week. It was a fumble lost by Eric Gray, I believe. And the 49ers offense, before they get into the red zone, they've had a bit of a turnover problem, and Purdy's really been that problem. It's interceptions, it's fumbles. Purdy's turned the ball over 4 games in a row. That's the longest streak of his career. So it's not just the red zone issues. It's not necessarily getting to the red zone because the Niners are getting to the red zone so much that we're noticing they're not scoring a lot. They had 6 trips against Arizona. But the turnover issue is a thing. I feel like it's kind of getting swept underneath the rug that Purdy is turning the ball over. And you could look at it as, okay, well, a couple of those, the 2 interceptions last week tipped at the line, bad luck, bad bounces, but he's still throwing the interception. He's still turning the ball over. Seattle's not forcing that. So now we're talking about, okay, if Seattle doesn't force the turnovers, the Niners aren't punting the ball a ton. They're moving the ball totally fine. I think Warren Sharp said they're getting into the red zone at a higher percentage than they did last year. I want to say, might have misread that tweet. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
Something close to that at least.
I can't read. Reading's a tough thing for me.
Words are hard.
But if Seattle can't force turnovers tonight, there's no reason to believe the Niners offense is going to be stopped. And that's where I'm hoping they kind of fill in the gap is Purdy doesn't turn the ball over. They get to the red zone with a little more confidence. And now, as you mentioned, Jason, there's a lot of injuries on the Seattle defense. I have it pulled up here. Derek Hall, questionable tonight. Byron Murphy, out. Uwosu, out. Reek Woolen, out. Boye Mafe, questionable. Julian Love, questionable. That's 6 people the Seahawks are potentially missing on a defense that's struggling already. It just feels like a spot. And I don't want to teeter into the Patriots game a little bit because I mentioned, hey, did the Niners defense figure it out against a poor Patriots offense, or did the Niners just take advantage of a poor Patriots offense? And that's where I'm on the line tonight of if the Niners offense looks really good against Seattle's defense, did the Niners take advantage of an injured Seattle defense, or did they figure it out against the Seattle defense? And that's where I'm at. But in terms of the preview, Jason, none of that matters because whether the Niners figure out an injured Seahawks defense or the Niners figure out their offense, it probably means a win. And that's just what matters tonight, is just winning one football game tonight. In terms of what it means for week 7, 8, 9, 10, don't care. All that matters is the Niners walk out of Lumen Field with a W tonight, and that's what's needed.
Yeah, 100%. And again, obviously schematically you're going to look at it and say, oh, Mike McDonald with the Ravens, okay, that's cool, but did he bring over Kyle Hamilton and Patrick Queen and all those guys as well too? No, he didn't. So you can run schematically whatever you want. If your personnel can't dictate it and you're playing your game, none of that matters, right? Again, the way the 49ers have largely lost games has not been offensively. Obviously, the turnovers are important. I think I'm really happy that you brought that up. But essentially, the defense has had a hard time closing out games. And then obviously you've got your special teams gaffes, all that stuff. The red zone stuff allows guys to stick around. But again, in this game, I just feel like everything has kind of just been very close, little things here and there that I think finally start to break through. And I think that's what you're going to see this week. And it has to be this week. And again, I feel like this whole wounded animal, narrative about like, oh my God, they're cooked. This is exactly the team that will feed into that and do all that. So again, I'm not as worried when it comes to all those things. I think as long as the 49ers play their ball, no turnovers in this game, I really don't see how Seattle slows them down at all on offense in this game, even without Christian McCaffrey.
That was my big question I had, Jason. You mentioned the Raven game last year. Reason we mentioned it, Mike McDonald, he is coaching his first NFC West game as the Seahawks head coach tonight. He was the Ravens defensive coordinator last year. And if you guys remember, I'm sure you remember Christmas Day, Niners turn the ball over 5 times. Purdy throws 4 interceptions. Darnold throws 1. Niners lose, right? Bad game. I think some people see that game and see Mike McDonald and say, okay, well, Niners had issues. And that's not a new thought because we've seen coordinators have Kyle Shanahan's numbers in them, Jim Schwartz, Steve Spagnuolo, and Brian Flores. Like defensive coordinators, there's some guys that have his number. But that's exactly the point I wanted to make was the Ravens defense last year, they led the NFL with 31 turnovers forced. That's a turnover rate of 14.4%. I think that was like 5th in the league last year. So while McDonald's scheme works really well, you do need players. And the reason I say that is I mentioned it already. Seattle's forced 4 turnovers and a turnover rate of 6.6%. So like through 5 games, not very good. And obviously the 8% drop off. This isn't the same skill. Now, let's talk about Mike McDonald in 5 years where he gets some more of his guys in a Seattle defense. Then we could be talking about, hey, this is a turnover-heavy team. But right now, it just doesn't feel like they have the players to force the turnovers that McDonald was forcing last year. And not only do they not have the players right now, they don't have the players tonight because of injuries. So I know a lot of people want to keep that Ravens game in the back of their head. It's just this Seahawks defense is not yet what that Ravens defense was. And it strictly comes down to talent. So if you're keeping that Mike McDonald 5 turnover game last year in your head and saying, hey, that's why Purdy might not look good tonight, I would throw that out. I think that as much as we like to look at previous games as references, and I did too, I went back and looked at that box score. I looked back and saw what happened. I just don't think you can easily say, okay, well, this Seahawks defense doesn't have Kyle Hamilton or Patrick Queen or any of those guys. It's the Seahawks defense. And this is a defense the Niners haven't had much of an issue with the past couple of years.
Right. And again, it just feels like everything's close. And that's why I think this is the game, especially considering the Seattle Seahawks are going to throw the shit out the football in this game. And I think they're going to have little to no resistance, I think, at points. Like this game has a little bit of a back and forth type of feel when it comes to that. The Seattle's dead last in rushing attempts. Last week, Kenneth Walker ran the ball 5. He caught about 6-7 passes. Geno Smith is throwing the ball down the field. He's got all of these weapons. This has got the feel of a little bit of a high scoring game, back and forth. So I think that's kind of where I'm at too. And I think the way that they're offsetting their defensive woes are the fact that their offense is very good throwing the football through the air with obviously the way that Geno Smith's been playing. So this game has a little bit of a ping pong effect going back and forth. The only thing I'll say that would behoove the 49ers in this one is if they're completely one dimensional, then pin your ears back and go get Geno Smith, man, and slow down the offense with your pass rush, right? Like this has to be one of those games where Nick Bosa takes over for a little bit or, and gets some sacks. Because if you're just straight dropping back the way that Seattle has done, then you really can throw the running game out and it helps a lot. So I think in this instance, I think this game is going to have a bunch of points. Should be good for fantasy owners, managers, and it's going to put them in a position where the 49ers are going to have to fight back. And this is why I feel like their offense is ready to execute and finish these drives and punctuate them with touchdowns. You're going to see not too much from Matthew Wright tonight other than extra points.
Matthew Wright, new Niners kicker, replacing Jake Moody after the injury. Jason, you mentioned Geno Smith, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Geno Smith. Maybe I said that backwards, Jason, but I'll ask you this question. You probably know the answer now since the context. Who leads the NFL in pass attempts?
Geno Smith.
Geno Smith, 199 pass attempts. He's never had a stretch of 5 games where he's thrown 199 pass attempts in his career. And I know that's an up and down, career. He hasn't played. He has played. But they're relying on Geno Smith a lot. The Niners, the most passing attempts they faced in a game this year, I believe, was 32. And that was Jacoby Brissett in a game where the Patriots had to throw the ball a lot to catch up. But last week, Kyler Murray threw the ball 30 times, looked pretty fine against the Niners. Geno Smith has thrown the ball 32 or more times in each of the last 4 games. He has gone 44 pass attempts in week 2, 34 pass attempts in week 3, 56 in overtime, or not in overtime, 56 in week 4 against the Lions, and then 40 last week against the Giants. So the Niners haven't faced a pass offense, obviously, like Seattle, who's going to throw the ball as much as they did. And usually, normal years, I feel like that would make me feel better. But this Niners pass defense has been a little suspect. You've mentioned it already. The one thing I've noticed, though, about Geno Smith and the Seahawks offense is, while they lead the league in pass attempts, and I think they're 3rd in pass yards, they're like 15th in yards per attempt. So they're not necessarily pushing the ball down the field. And so I don't know. I think this is a big, like, the pass rush. I know you've had your concerns on the back end of the defense. I'm just going to keep pounding it in. The pass rush needs to show up at some point. And tonight should be that night, especially if Geno Smith's going to throw the ball 35 times. You're going to have plenty of chances to get after him. And again, this is where I just need Nick Sorensen to just throw something out there and do something a little different. And listen, I'm not the X's and O's guy of this podcast. I'm not the film watcher. This is just based off of what I've seen. This 49ers defense just feels like there's no imagination to it. And it bothers me a little bit because there's so much talent. And it's almost as if, I think I said it on the podcast before. I don't know if I have, but if I haven't, whatever. It's almost like the Niners defense needs to play more offensive than they do defensively. It's almost like they're saying, hey, we'll let you tighten the field on us, but we'll get better as the field tightens. Where I just feel like the Niners need to go out there and instead of hoping, they don't say the Niners lead in hoping for turnovers. They lead the league in forcing turnovers. And I just feel like there hasn't been that force aspect from the 49ers defense. And tonight would be a great spot for them to force 1, 2, maybe even 3 turnovers just based off of Nick Sorensen showing something different. Because it just feels like it's the same vanilla defense every single week. And Jason, you are the all-22 guy of this podcast. Is that what you're seeing when you're watching the Niners defense? It's just kind of the same stuff, hoping it works differently, or do you see a little more imagination in Sorensen's, and I'm giving credit for?
No, I think there is. I mean, he blitzes more and more, and he's got to find a way to get there. I think that's the part that he's away from. It's not just a vanilla 4-man rush, right? I mean, you look back on that fourth quarter play with Kyler Murray on 4th down. The blitz is the perfect call, and it almost gets there, and Kyler just throws up this prayer. And he throws it to a spot, and Marvin Harrison gets there. That's the thing about play calling and execution. Everyone's going to look at the result and say, oh, shit, what the hell was that? But it was the right call. And you just have to tip your cap and hope that Yadam can make the play, but he threw it to a spot. Like, what? Like, That's the thing is everything feels like when you get the play call right, the execution's off. When you have the play call wrong, the execution's on. But it's one or the other, and that's the same thing that I'm talking about with the offense in this game. You've got to be able to blitz a little bit more and get there. I'm looking at Malik Collins against Laken Tomlinson in this game. This has got to be a game where Collins is a menace in the middle of that offensive line, and he's getting through because it's a lot of dropbacks. It's a lot of stuff from shotgun. It's a lot of long developing routes that they want to use. It's not a lot of quick game. Like I think what you see out of that is a lot more checkdowns with Seattle than it is quick game, like the throws to Christian McCaffrey type deal. So I think with those long developing routes, you have to get home. So it's got to start in the middle. And if Malik Collins and these blitzes start to get Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd these one-on-ones, they have to win. They have to capitalize. So on the back end, you're starting Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown. Clearly, those guys have, one's a rookie. Jair Brown has struggled at times, and you have to be able to protect them a little bit more. This has to be a game where Mooney Ward, even though he's banged up, and I want to make sure I reiterate that, he plays just a little bit better, man, because if he doesn't, we're in for a long day because we're so used to the 49ers being able to take DK Metcalf out of games when Mooney is on, that if it does come down to DK catching passes, it opens up so many more things. That's where you'll see the 49ers get into trouble. So it's got to be the pass rush. But I'm looking at you, Malik Collins, and I'm looking at you, Nick Sorensen, with the blitzes so you can get one-on-ones for those guys so they can win. The defensive line has to make their money tonight. No questions asked, and I'm not letting them off the hook.
I like how you mentioned DK Metcalf and in the secondary, and that's where I wanted to go next because for the past 5-6 years, it's been Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Niners know what to expect. We saw a little bit of Jackson Smith and Jigba last year. He was still a rookie. He had a pretty good role in the Seattle offense, but this year it feels like he's taking that increased step. He has more targets already than Tyler Lockett this season, more receptions than DK Metcalf, although he has less yards than both. Is the addition, I guess the emergence of Jackson Smith and Jigba in this Seattle offense, is that a concern to you? Because instead of just the two normal weapons 49er fans have become used to seeing, Seattle's now got a third weapon in this offense, at least out wide. Kenneth Walker's still there. He's obviously a very good running back. But it really feels like the past 5-6 years it was DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Don't let anybody else beat you. But now there's Smith and Jigba. Are you concerned at all about the addition of the third receiver against this specific 49er secondary?
Hell yeah, because they can threaten you at all three levels. I mean, in certain concepts, you can just run DK Metcalf clear out. You can run Tyler Lockett into the intermediate. It's going to pull linebackers his way. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba can work underneath, and you can get him opportunities for yak. I think we saw that a lot in the Detroit game. Wasn't as prevalent in the New York Giants game for whatever reason, but they have those guys, and all three of them are versatile to do all three things. Tyler Lockett isn't going to be your over-the-middle type guy. Obviously, he doesn't want to take hits, but they've got guys that they can run concepts where they're threatening you at all three levels. And Gino's been seeing the field so well that he can look and say, all right, nope, and get down to Jackson Smith and Jigba if you're not getting there with pass rush. That's what I'm talking about. Like, these concepts that they're running are longer developing, so it takes time for them to develop. That's the stupidest thing I've ever said, probably. Longer developing, so it takes time to develop, of course. Yeah. But what I'm saying is the pass rush can't allow him to go 1, 2, 3, and then even if sometimes see Kenneth Walker as the ultimate check down at the bottom. You have to be able to stop that, because if you allow him all that time, he's going to pick you apart, whether you're in man, whether you're in zone. I think that this trio presents the biggest challenge for this 49ers pass defense this season so far, obviously. But I think, again, they can attack you in three different ways. And with the way that Geno Smith is seeing the football field right now and throwing the football, you cannot allow him to get time. This is what the whole crux of this defense needs to be in this game. It has to be built on pass rush. It has to be with them getting home. And if it doesn't, I'm taking them to task this week, because this offensive line is not great. This offensive line is a little banged up itself. You have to be able to take advantage. If you're not going to make your money in this game, then when are you going to make your money? Obviously, last week, Kyler Murray can move around. He's annoying, right? Like that type of stuff. Geno's not going to do that. Geno's going to be in the pocket. Go get him. And this has to be this type of game for the 49ers to actually come out with a W.
Jason, my last question doesn't really have to do with this game necessarily, although it does. And then I got a couple things that, predictions, all that fun stuff. there's this belief, I think, I've seen a lot 49ers Twitter, and I've leaned into the thought a little bit as well, is we've seen the Niners with these slow starts. I think famously a couple years ago, 3-5 to start the season. Niners slow out the gate. To me, it feels different this year. It feels different than those slow out the gates because those slow out the gates in previous years felt exactly that, a slow out of the gate, where this year it feels like the 49ers have legitimate issues to fix. The red zone is one. The pass rush is another. Like, legitimate issues. Do you think this is as simple to write off and say the 49ers start off slow, they'll fix it? Or do you think there's legitimate issues that need to be addressed before the 49ers can focus on getting on the right track for the 2024 season?
Yeah, I really despise the whole like, oh, they were this record this year, they were that record, whatever year. Yes, history is the great indicator of the future. But relying on situations and circumstances and context and schedule that varies from year to year, that's a little bit of hopium.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is Seattle, Kansas City, Dallas, bye week, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Buffalo. By that time, Miami's probably going to have Tua.
Mhm.
This feels different. And in the early part of the schedule, you kicked away games that you were supposed to. Like the 49ers could have played at the same level that they played in all those games and still be 4-1. Now, will we would be concerned for sure because we're going to say, hey, you can't beat Kansas City with field goals, even though, ironically, the team right under the 49ers in red zone efficiency is the
Yep.
Kansas City Chiefs. They're
Yep.
actually 5-0, though. They're
Great
5-0.
shout.
Right. But the problem is I don't like looking at things that happen with circumstances in those seasons that have nothing to do with this season other than the fact that the 49ers have started slow. That's the only thing that is close to this. And that's the only parallel is that you started slow. But when you look at this schedule gets brutal. And it's going to be one of the toughest left in the league. We don't know what these teams are going to look like when we face them. We don't know what shape they're going to be in. The injury bug is everywhere. It's not just a 49er thing. Trust me, man. Look around. Everybody's dealing with it. I mean, Indianapolis is down to like their fourth receiver at this point, and guys are back out there with like their third quarterback. And it's not that I'm hoping for any of that. It's just what it is. Injuries this year have been insane. So we don't know what that's going to look like. But if we're just going off of what those teams are, what we expect them to be, then this schedule is going to be really tough. And you can't mess around and you can't just kick games away. That's why this season feels completely different. And I throw out almost anything that has happened before. But I will say this, if there is a team equipped to do it, if there is a team that is mentally strong enough to get out of this, if there is a team that when everybody starts to doubt them, they start to play better, it is the 49ers. So that's the part that I have hope for. But I'm not setting my watch to it just because it's happened 2 or 3 years ago, like when and those circumstances, a completely different team. We have different expectations for this team than we did, before with whoever was the quarterback at the time. This team shouldn't be in this position. So I think that's the part that I have an issue with.
And that's the thing, man. Like, you look at Kansas City and you see that they're worse red zone offense than the 49ers, and you look at their 5-0. It sucks because the 49ers could easily be 5-0 right now. Kansas City could easily be 2-3 right now. And like, that's just the situation of it. And Jason, you mentioned the schedule. I want to do an exercise. We don't do exercises too much on the Sprint Right Option podcast. And
I get winded too fast. I don't want to do exercises.
Well, okay, sorry. A homework assignment, an assignment of sorts. I have the 49ers remaining schedule in front of me, Jason. And I figured let's take advantage of having 2 episodes today. So what I'm going to do is, before the Niners versus Seahawks, we're going to run through the remainder of the Niners schedule. We're going to say win or loss. And we're going to tell you what the 49ers are going to finish before the Seahawks game. Then when we stream tonight, I'm going to ask you the same schedule. We'll see what the vibes look like. We'll see what the records equal. Let's see what they match. And let's just see how much can change in the Sprint Right Option podcast with one football game. So, Jason, I think the easiest one, I think I'm going to put us both down for a W against Seattle. I think we're both going to have them. Okay. Next week, Kansas City. I'm tired of losing to the Chiefs. I'm just going to put an L because I'm used to it. Is that what you got?
Yep.
Okay, so then Dallas, I can't put an L there. I got to put a W against Dallas.
W.
So W. Okay, so then out of the bye week at Tampa Bay.
Win. You're gonna get Feliciano back. You're probably gonna get Greenlaw back around that time as well too. Possibly Christian McCaffrey. Win.
I'm gonna go loss just because they scare me right now, and that's where I'm at right now.
Eh,
But in 8 hours, they might scare me less because the Niners might win. So
but Tampa's pass defense is disgusting. 500 yards to Kirk Cousins is crazy, man.
could you picture though the current 49ers secondary guarding Chris Godwin and Mike Evans right now? That's
Um,
scary.
See, but the thing is their defense is so bad. I'm fully equipped and I feel
Fair.
fine, especially if Greenlaw's back, and
Yeah.
he's getting closer. I especially feel good in that matchup. Their defense is terrible.
Seattle the next week after Tampa.
W.
I'll go W as well. At Green Bay.
L.
I got an L as well. I'm going to put an L on the next one at Buffalo.
Me too.
Yep. Chicago, I'm going to put a W, but that's a game that I don't want to talk about right now because the Bears could be totally different.
W.
Versus the Rams.
W.
I got a W too. At Miami, we'll pretend 2 is back.
W.
Okay. Versus Detroit, I got a W versus Miami as well. I'm going to put an L against Detroit.
Me too.
And then at Arizona, week 18.
W.
I'll do it as well. So the only place we differ is the Tampa Bay game. So let me do some math. Jason, you want to talk real quick? I'll tell you what you have the Niners finishing as. I'll tell you what I got.
Yeah, I 10-6. I believe if I'm not mistaken. What I've got
7 is what you got. Yes.
10-7. I'm sorry, 10-7. 10-7 should be good enough to get into the playoffs. After that, all bets are off. The 49ers are in, and they become that team that everybody just doesn't want to play.
So we got Jason, you got 10-7. I got 9-8. But as we said, maybe the Niners win tonight, and that my 9-8 turns into what would that be? 14-3. Like that's just how confident I am in the Niners. But I think we got to take advantage of the 2 episodes to kind of see how we're feeling before the Seahawks game and after, and we'll see how it compares because it's also a possibility Seattle wins this game, and we're like the Niners are done winning games this season. So we're just what are we doing? So let's see what that looks like. Jason, we've reached the predictions portion of the Sprint Right Option podcast. I know you put a tweet out already with your picks that include the famous Jake Moody over 13.5 rushing yards, but use the promo code Aponte at Underdog. Use the promo code Aponte at Underdog. They'll match your first deposit up to $1,000. I've lost Jason. Is Jason okay?
Yeah, no, we're good. Jake Moody getting over 13.5 yards is.
Oh, is that what I said?
Yeah,
is that what I said? Oh, Brock Purdy getting over 13.5 yards rushing yards. There we go.
Ooh,
if Jake Moody came out and got 13.5.
If Jake Moody gets 13.5 on like a fake field goal or something like that, I'll be like, where's the 3rd round pick?
With one leg too. That'd be
with
even
one
more
leg.
impressive.
Greg Jennings put the team on his back in Madden. Or, you know what? It's time, Jake Moody. It's time.
So Jason, what is your Underdog promo code Aponte? First deposit up to $1,000 matched. What is your Underdog card for tonight?
Yeah, let's take the easy money. Vegas is hopping on. I tried to take it at 12.5 with my sports book, but it moved up to 13.5. They're getting hit. 13.5 rushing yards for Brock Purdy. We're taking higher. Big Deebo Samuel game. Look at me. I called Brandon Ayuk last week. Big Deebo Samuel week this week. 56.5 receiving yards. We're going higher. I expect him to be involved early, often, especially with the fact that Reek Willen's not going to be in. Witherspoon is going to run over to Ayuk and be with him the most of the time. Everything tonight. Jet sweeps, tunnel screens, everything. Only 4 touches last week. Squeaky wheel game for Deebo Samuel this week. 56.5 receiving yards, up higher. Juwan Jennings, 30.5 receiving yards, higher. Seems too low. He can get that on 2 catches. I believe that's what happens, especially when you get him into those nickel situations. They're not going to have any answer for him in that as well. Geno Smith over 250.5 receiving yards because they're going to throw the shit out of the football the entire games. But those are my 4 picks. I feel real good about them going into this game.
So Brock Purdy over the 13.5 rushing yards, Deebo and Juwan Jennings over on yardage, and then Geno Smith over on passing yardage. And yeah, I like the Geno Smith one. They're going to throw the ball a lot, and it might create a long game. I think it's going to be a sloppy game too. I don't think this is going to be the prettiest of games. I think both teams are going to be, I don't want to say pushing too hard, but pushing too hard to try and make up for both teams' disappointing. Like we haven't really talked about it, but the Seahawks, we've talked about how disappointing the 49ers loss on Sunday was. The Seahawks had just as bad of a loss against the New York Giants on Sunday as well. So they're coming in. I think this is going to be a sloppy game. And Jason, I didn't say it. We're now in predictions. I'm giving you my score. I think this is going to be a low scoring, sloppy, just slugfest. I got 20-17 49ers. And between you and I, Jason, not the internet, if this wasn't a 49ers podcast, I might pick the Seahawks, but this is a 49ers podcast. 2-3 on the season, picking the 49ers. We'll be 3-3 after today. I got 49ers 20, the Seattle Seahawks 17.
Nah, man, I'm sorry. I can't agree with you. Last week, you predicted a blowout against Arizona. I told you to chill. This week, let's go scorched earth. 49ers 38, Seahawks 27. Every little thing that has been going wrong with the 49ers is correctable. It's been a tip pass, it's been a dropped pass, or it's been something out of the ordinary. All of that stuff ends this week. They absolutely break out. Big Deebo Samuel, big George Kittle game with the lights on, because all the attention is going to be paid to Ayuk with Witherspoon. And again, Seattle's high-flying passing attack is going to make this game annoying. They're going to put up points. Ping pong game back and forth. Whatever the over-under is on this game, if I'm not mistaken, it is 49.5. Over. Way over. No way that this game doesn't get to 50 based on the way these two defenses are playing and the way their offenses can move the ball. 49ers win 38-27. We get back on track and we start talking about the parade again, guys.
I like it. I like talking parades on the Sprint Right Option podcast. Jason, the 49ers play the Seattle Seahawks tonight. 5:15, Amazon Prime. Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit on the call. Third straight year the 49ers have gone up to Seattle for a Thursday night game. 2 years ago was Brock Purdy beating the Seahawks by a pretty good score on a Thursday night. Last year it was Thanksgiving. The 49ers got to eat some turkey legs on the field at Lumen. Third year in a row. We'll see what happens. Must win for both teams, I would say. The NFC West is up for grabs tonight with the 3-2 Seahawks against the 2-3 49ers. But I got even better news, Jason. We'll be back tonight. Sprint Option Podcast, instant reaction. Jason Aponte, Andrew Pasquini. We will be live the second the game ends. We'll be talking everything 49ers win, everything 49ers loss, whatever happens. Ideally, it's a win, but we are looking forward to it. It's going to be a double episode. It's going to be a long day for Jason Aponte, Andrew Pasquini. That's okay. We love days like this. We get to talk football. Not much I'd rather want to do in life than talk football with Jason Aponte, specifically 49ers football. So, Jason, final question.
Yep.
Yankees close it tonight.
Yankees win, Niners win, and the world is right again.
Love it. The Yankees, we're feeling good. Giancarlo coming back. He's turning it around a little bit. Who's on the bump?
It's Garrett Cole against Michael Wacha.
I like it.
Let's close this shit out.
Michael Wacha has been in the league forever.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out because I think he pitched for the Cardinals. He's the one who gave up the home run to Ishikawa 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And then he went over to Boston, so he's a familiar foe. But when you look at that Royals pitching staff yesterday, them throwing out Seth Lugo and the 49ers and the Yankees getting a win is kind of indicative of where this series is going right now. Everybody's talking about Aaron Judge not hitting. Bobby Witt, one hit in 13 at bats. So let's talk about him too as well. But I will say this: if you're not rooting for the Yankees, root for this. Eliminating Patrick Mahomes and getting him off my fucking television.
Yes. That's I've thought of that, and those Mets are still kind of looming large out there as well.
I don't want to think about them. We got let's win here and we'll figure that out. But oh my God. And I meant that unironically. Oh my God, the Mets have the juice and the sauce.
That Lindor grand slam.
That was electric.
Sick.
Yeah,
that Lindor grand slam was sick. Jason, I've loved this preview so much. Let's talk. You know what? Let's do it again. 8:30 tonight. Let's talk 49ers win. Let's talk Yankees win. Let's have a good time. Jason, I've enjoyed it. I know the chat's enjoyed it. We'll see you guys tonight after ideally a 49ers win. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's fucking go Niners and Yankees.
The Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.